In the high-stakes world of global commodity procurement, getting your timing exactly right is often a matter of absolute corporate survival. We can trace this pressure in the PBT, polybutylene terephthalate, market report for the fourth week of July 2026, issued by Bazaar. The intelligence concludes with an explicit recommendation to execute raw material procurement at current spot prices. However, this recommendation arrives while global market sentiment remains deeply cautious. This creates a contradiction. Intelligence is advising aggressive purchasing, even though current demand is sluggish and strictly need-based. An ongoing geopolitical crisis has introduced an exogenous variable that overrides standard market fundamentals. Procurement officers are treating this buy signal as a defensive hedge, prioritizing supply security over local demand forecasts. To understand the mechanics of this hedge, we must deconstruct the supply chain from the raw material floor upward. The analysis starts with the primary building blocks of PBT. Production costs are dictated by two upstream feedstocks, PTA and BDO. This logic tree maps the PBT supply chain. Feedstock pricing provides the baseline to identify where risk premiums enter the market. Current Chinese costs are stable. PTA is 5,930 RMB, BDO is 8,800 RMB. This establishes a price basis existing before logistical friction is added. This stable cost basis contrasts sharply with the volatility currently seen in downstream PBT prices. Since the raw material floor has not shifted, any anticipated price spikes are being driven by structural risks higher up the supply chain. These risks originate at the primary manufacturing node, the China Bazaar. Chinese buyers are currently limiting their raw material procurement to a strictly need basis. This behavioral shift is a direct response to geopolitical risk. The ongoing crisis carries a constant threat of severing production lines and halting exports. A disruption at this crucial node creates a significant bottleneck, thinning the global supply lines that rely on Chinese output. While low demand usually pushes prices down, in this context, it signals an impending supply squeeze. Domestic hoarding or production halts in China act as catalysts for a global price surge. China's sluggish buying is a structural brace for impact, creating a bullish risk indicator globally. This structural supply risk is already moving west, starting with the European bazaar, where localized demand currently remains very weak. This has resulted in a price drop of 10 euros, bringing PBT down to 1,740 euros per metric ton. However, European freight rates are simultaneously increasing. Rising logistical costs during a period of weak demand confirm that supply lines out of Asia are tightening. The U.S. bazaar is showing similar signs of tension. Neat grade prices sit at 110 cents per pound, while 30% glass-filled is 260 cents. U.S. participants remain uncertain as the geopolitical backdrop influences market sentiment. There is an expectation that U.S. processors will begin buying more actively in the coming days. This anticipated buying wave is a reaction to global uncertainty rather than organic consumer demand. European freight hikes and impending U.S. procurement suggest the supply shock is being priced in globally. The Indian spot bazaar provides a final data point for emerging market reactions. Spot quotations in Mumbai and Delhi are currently holding between 144 and 147 rupees per kilogram. Processors here are restricting purchases to immediate requirements, mirroring the caution seen in China. Buying activity is expected to spike if demand signals show any signs of stabilization. The Indian market is currently suppressed by international anxiety, but it is primed for aggressive procurement if supply disruptions occur. With all these data points collected, we can now construct a unified macroeconomic picture of the global PBT market. Localized fundamentals, such as weak European demand and cautious Indian processors, populate the low-risk quadrant of our matrix. The high-risk quadrant is occupied by escalating freight rates and the threat of Chinese supply chain severance. The weight of these macro risks is currently the dominant factor in the market, overshadowing the signals from localized demand. Ultimately, this creates a severe asymmetric price threat. Downside price risk is limited by the feedstock costs of PTA and BDO, while the upside risk from a supply shock is significantly higher. In this environment, geopolitics has become the primary driver of price action, often outweighing the signals from local demand. This context validates the July 2026 recommendation to buy at current prices. Executing on this recommendation functions as a defensive procurement strategy. Securing inventory at current spot prices acts as a hedge against an imminent, crisis-driven price spike. This strategy balances the minor expense of holding inventory today against the high operational risk of a stockout should supply lines from China falter. The buy signal serves as a mathematically sound shield against global fragility.